Hello, my lovelies, and welcome to the Spirit, Tarot, and Healing Arts channel. If you are new, welcome back. If you are a returning viewer, I'm Rin, and today we are going to take a look at doing a past life reading with the Lenormand. So a little while back, I was like, you know what? I want to do something different with my past life readings. And so I was looking into different past life readings, and then I got the idea, I wonder if anyone does past life readings with Lenormand decks and how that would work and what that would look like. And so I came across Jenna Matlin's video, and I will link it in the description box below so that you can go check out her video. And as I understand it, she is the one who created the spread and the method that you see in that video. And it is really, really interesting how she does it. And I really like that. And when doing readings for friends, I do sometimes do the Lenormand past life the way that she actually teaches in the video. But I wanted to turn this into a reading that I could offer through my Etsy shops, my website. And the one thing about her reading is that sometimes it can be super, super short. Because how long the reading is for her depends on how long you lived in that particular lifetime. And it absolutely makes sense. It's valid. It is a really fun spread to do. However, when you are a professional reader like myself, especially when I have to go through like Etsy, I have to have a uniform price. I can't charge by, oh, you only got 3 cards, so it's this amount, or you got the full 10 cards, or you got 12 cards. You can't really charge that way. And so I played with this a little bit to get it to where it would be a consistent number of cards for every reading, and that way I could charge accordingly. So whereas in her version, you could get super short lifetimes because of the way she does it. And again, I really, really recommend that you go check out the exact way that she does this spread, because it is beautiful. But I needed to temper with it a little bit to make it work for my purposes. So when I do these readings, only lives that can fill all of the houses, if you will, for this spread will come through. So it does kind of limit in a way the types of past lives that can come through, because you do need to have lived long enough to fill all the houses in this spread. But like I said, if I'm just doing them for myself or for a friend, I will very often do them the way that she teaches, because I do really like that method. But for professional purposes, I needed to play with it a little bit. And sometimes, even if I'm just reading for myself or friends, I'll do it this way, because the way that I do it adds a little bit more information. So being completely upfront and honest, I have basically yes and her spread because of what I needed it to do. But it's still very similar. It has the whole theme, the idea, like I have to give credit to Jenna, because I would not have this spread or be doing it this way if I had not seen her video and learned her spread from her. So let me show you the houses, because this does essentially work kind of like a grand tableau does, where you have houses. And I know some people don't necessarily pay attention to the houses when they do Lenormand readings. I do and don't. It depends on what exactly I'm doing in the grand tableau as to how much weight I give the house that something is in. But that's just me personally. We all have different ways to do it. But for this particular reading, we have a certain set of houses. We have 10 houses that we're working with. And they are going to represent areas of the past life. So we start with the bottom left with the house, which is, kind of self-explanatory. That describes the person's house. So it could be the physical dwelling. It could show you that they lived in the countryside. It could show you that they lived in the city. It could show you different attitudes around their house as more of a metaphorical thing about their family and what their home life was like. It just depends on what card falls there. Then we have the garden, and the garden represents their community or their social network and standing. Then the third card is the anchor, which represents their work. Then we come up to the middle row, the first card on the left, and there we have the tree, and that represents their health and well-being in the past life. We have the ring, which represents partnerships, commitment, marriage. It'll depend on what card lands in that house as to how exactly you will interpret it. The sixth card we have is the bear, which represents motherhood or fatherhood. It represents whether or not they are a parent or were a parent in that past life. So then we have in the top left corner the fox. And I know that a lot of people have a negative view of the fox in Lenormand. It can be a negative card in Lenormand without a doubt, but I have a special place for the fox, and I've always found that the fox was not always a negative card in my Lenormand readings. And actually, Jenna Matlin, who, again, I got this spread, the initial spread from, feels the same way about the fox that I do. And so here, it can represent whether or not the person was an entrepreneur, or it can represent their big desires in that past life. Then we have the clover as our eighth card, and that shows what worked for the person in the past life, what they had going for them, what worked out for them. Then we have the cross, which shows the challenge or what didn't work out for them, the burden that they had in that past life. And then the last card, the 10th card, which is up in the top very right, is the letter. And that is the past life's message for you as you're doing that reading. The lesson or a message from your past life self, however you want to look at that. But it's a message from that past life for you. So these are our 10 houses that we'll be using for the reading. Now, when you do your reading, if you have more than one Lenormand deck, you can lay down the 10 houses as I have done in this picture, and then lay your reading on top. Or if you can remember which house is which, you can just lay down your Lenormand cards, or if you don't have a second deck, you can just have a little cheat sheet by you so you remember which position is which house. But those are the houses. Now I'm going to deal out a reading and show you how I personally do this reading. So you can see in this picture that I have laid out my Lenormand cards on top of the houses. Now I am using the Maybe Lenormand, so if any of you aren't familiar with that deck, it is an expanded Lenormand that uses 52 cards. This was designed to be used with the standard Lenormand, which is 36 cards, but if you have an expanded deck like the Maybe Lenormand or the Reverie, Golden Reverie Lenormand, those will both work as well if you want to use an expanded Lenormand deck. But you don't have to. You can use a standard Lenormand deck that is, what this spread was created for. Now, when I do this reading professionally, I draw more than just the 10 cards from Jenna's spread. Those are my houses that are the meat and potatoes of this reading. But you'll notice I also have the lady card over here to the left. When Jenna does the reading, you do leave, I believe you leave both of the people in, if I remember correctly, because I've been doing mine more than hers lately. But I separate out the gentleman and the lady, and then I shuffle those and draw one, and that is the person's gender of the past life. And then there are 3 more cards that I do not have in this picture that I use when I do this reading professionally. And that's because I have some specialized decks that I use for past lives. One deck will give the time frame of the past life. Another deck will give the sun sign that the person was born under, or We didn't always have the zodiac the way we think of it now, all throughout human history. So it gives us the time of year that the person was born. And then I also have a specialized deck that gives the cause of death in the past life. So I use those as well as what you see here. But I'm just going to show you what we have here because chances are you may or may not have specialized decks or ways of picking up on that information on past life reading. You may get it clairvoyantly, etc. Maybe you use a pendulum for that. That's entirely up to how you want to do that. But since those are very specific decks, I didn't want to make you feel like you had to have them. So I'm leaving them out, but I do add that information in when I do this reading professionally. So if you book a reading with me for this, which you can do through my Spirit Tarot Etsy shop or my website, you will get that information as well. All right, so just to show you how this could look, I'm going to go ahead. This is a past life reading for myself. In this particular past life, I was a lady. My home, we have the coffin in that house. I really feel like I was the mortician's wife. Whoever, maybe he was a gravedigger too. Maybe he did it all. This could have been the Wild West where he, was the medical examiner, mortician, and gravedigger all as one, some sort of situation like that. But my house was near to or adjoining a cemetery. And Spirit does make me feel that it was more than just the placement. That was also my husband's job. And I do know that I was married because I've glanced ahead at the cards. Then we have the garden, which shows my community. Eyes were on us. We were very much watched for how we behaved, what we did, things like that. We were in one of those very, I feel like this was a Victorian era, probably past life. Again, probably, the wild, wild west. But in our town, our community, it's very who's doing what. Everybody wants to know everybody's business. And so, they were always watching to see if they could find some sort of salacious scandal or gossip that they could spread about town. And it wasn't just aimed at us. That's just how the town was. But because my husband held sort of a important position in the town, we were under scrutiny. He may have even been some sort of religious man or connected to the church in some way. And so that just sort of added to the, let's see if we can find some dirt on them. Then we have work, and in work we have the wine card. For me, this is really a celebration card. So I feel like for me, work was if there were viewings, they used to have the parlor room and that. I would help my husband out by setting up parlor rooms, organizing wakes and things like that, viewings, that sort of thing. That was my job. And for me personally, it was about a celebration of life, right? It wasn't so much the morning. Yes, the morning was there, but I tried to make these a celebration of life. When we come to the tree, we have the scythe there, which tells me that probably I did not have the best of health, and I probably passed away what a lot of people would consider prematurely. Now, we are talking back in the day. Sometimes, life expectancies weren't great, especially if, some sort of plague or influenza came around. And remember, my husband and I were working with dead bodies. They didn't exactly have the best protocols back then. So it is quite possible that I contracted something by helping my husband out in his line of work, that I, helped him process or, dress up for viewing or whatever a deceased person who had something that was still contagious, and I contracted that and passed on the earlier side. I feel like I was definitely into my adulthood, probably 40s, maybe 50s, but yeah, health-wise, not so great. Feel like I was cut down early, so I probably had some sort of pre-existing condition and then contracted that, and because of the pre-existing health condition, couldn't get over it. Then the next card we have is Ring, which is about the partnership. And interestingly, we have a child here, which tells me that, we already know I was married. And to skip ahead a moment, the bear with the lion in it, again, tells me what kind of mother I was. But this means that really, I get the sense that my husband and I were good. We loved each other, but really my whole world was my child. And I only get a sense of one here, but my whole world was my child. My child was sort of my partner in crime. And yeah, I probably had the child earlier on, late teens, early 20s. And so the child would have been an adult at the time of my passing. So my adult child and I were thick as thieves, partners in crime, if you will, that kind of thing. And 15, again, the bear, which shows parenthood, in my case, motherhood. We've got the lion there, and you guys know all of the tropes and similes and metaphors regarding lionesses and how they protect their cubs. So I would have done absolutely anything for my child. When we get up to the fox, we've got the pig and the fox, which means that I was wanting a very comfortable sort of, I don't know that I wanted to necessarily be rich, but I wanted to have a very, very comfortable life. I wanted to have a nice house, nice furniture, something comfortable, not over the top, but better than average is what I wanted. Not just for myself, though, but for my family. I wanted it for my husband. I wanted it for my child. I wanted us to be extremely comfortable. That was my grand desire in that lifetime. What worked for me with the House of the Clover, we've got the two swords crossed there and the rapiers. But what worked for me was that even though the town had eyes on us and wanted to have some dirt on us, they never found any. There was no dirt to be had. We were a happily married couple with a child who ran the, essentially the funeral home, cemetery in the town. And there was no dirt to dig up on us. We really didn't have any enemies. Like I said earlier, I really feel like it was just the town vibe of the town just liked to gossip about each other. There was nothing malicious and there was nothing to gossip about when it came to us. So we were very lucky there. When it comes to our burden, though, or my burden in that past life, we have the fish in that House of the Cross. And that means that finances never were where I wanted them. That whole desire of having a super comfortable home and life, we didn't quite reach that mark. Now, we weren't destitute or anything like that, but it didn't quite get to where I wanted it to be in that lifetime. But in retrospect, it probably still was better than average, and we did okay. And I wasn't unhappy in that past life with where I got to. I just wish that I could have provided even more for my family, if that makes sense. Like, I was good with what we had, but I always wanted to do more, and that was kind of my burden was, making sure the finances were there and trying to handle the finances and trying to make sure that everybody's needs were met. And then the message to myself from my past life is the anchor in the House of the Letter. And that's just letting me know to keep working. And I will get to where I want, or close to where I want, or where I need to be when I need to be. So that's the message. Just keep working in this lifetime, and I'm going to get what I desire in this particular lifetime. All right, so those are the houses. This is the spread. That is a run through of how I would interpret this particular spread. Remember, Lenormand, it can be very literal when we're looking at the meanings of the cards, because Lenormand does tend to be more blunt, more literal, less metaphorical, definitely not as esoteric as the tarot. For example, the home, having the coffin in the home, we're taking that very literally, that, probably lived on the grounds that the cemetery was on. dead people were in my home, because that's where we would prepare the bodies and everything for viewings, etc. Or, you know, we would go to other people's homes and do some of this work if they had parlors where they were having viewings and things like that. So a much more literal look at, you know, why the coffin would show up in the home. But I hope that you have enjoyed this. I really love this spread. Like I said, I have worked with it a little bit to make it work for my needs, but I do definitely recommend that you go check out how she does it, because I really like how she has you determine the cards that get laid out. It's very different. You don't just shuffle and lay out cards. There's a system to it, which is just fascinating. I love things like that. I've seen a lot of Kipper style readings like that, and it just always, I've seen some Lenormand ones like that too. I'm trying to think of there was a Lenormand one that I saw. I don't use it on the regular, but I've seen it where you draw cards more similarly to how she has you do it. But definitely worth a watch. I hope that you have enjoyed this. If you'd like to book a private reading with me, again, as always, you can do that through my website or through either one of my Etsy shops. All of the links are below. Don't forget that I do have the merch shop that I've launched a bunch of new merch on recently. All kinds of witchy stuff and spooky stuff and tarot, and some fun little stickers, clothes, tote bags, glasses. There's a lot of stuff on there, so be sure to check it out. But if you've liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them down below, because I do love to hear from all of you. And until I see you in the next video, blessings to you wherever your journey finds you.